Hi guys, this is Andy, the Expedition Hiker, and today we're having a review. In particular, we're talking about the Alpkit Ordos 2 tent. It's an ultralight tent, weighs in just under 2.8 pounds. So let's take a look in more detail. So as I mentioned before, this is the Alpkit Ordos 2. It is a lightweight 3+ season tunnel tent and has a geodesic design. This is in particular is the 2016 model, which is obviously now 5 years old. But the 2018 model have made certain improvements, which is also cheaper, so more for your buck, so to speak. So let's get into it with a little bit more detail. So what I've got here is, rather than me using the original bag for the tent, I put it in a dry bag and I can compact it down, press the ear out, and it folds down quite small here. And inside here I've got the fly sheet and the inner tent. I've also got the pegs that came with it, which are 10 pegs by DAC pegs. And on top of that we've got the poles, which are also DAC NSL alloy pole system. So let's get it opened. Now you can have the optional footprint as well. I've gone for making my own style of footprint, which is slightly lighter. There are several colours of this tent. So we've got this green one, there is a red version, I think there's a yellow version, and there's a grey version. We've got the fly sheet, the inner, as I've already mentioned, the pegs. So these are the pegs that we have with it. So like an L shape, DAC pegs, and come with 10 of those. And then the pole system as well, which is a single pole that's like a skeleton pole system. So it makes that geodesic design. Although this is the older version, the newer version makes it geodesic. It isn't really self-standing. The 2018 model is okay, but it still works out to be a 3+ season tent. So without that, let's set it up. So I've laid the footprint down, and now we'll just put the inner tent down flat. We're just going to peg it out, build up the frame. Here we've got our structure about it. So there's the structure of the tent. As you can see from there, it's got a bathtub design. So we've got the front section is mesh, the top section, and then the rear is mesh. But other than that, the sides are a second skin, which does make it a 3+ season tent. It isn't obviously a full skin, but I think this allows me to reduce the amount of condensation. I don't really get much condensation in this tent, which is a bonus. So now we've got this up, let's get the fly sheet up as well. So as I mentioned before, it is a lightweight 3+ season tent with a hybrid design. This is the 2016 model, but the newer version has an improved pole system, making it a semi-geodesic design. Weighs in at 2.7 pounds. The newer version is actually slightly heavier, slightly stronger pole structure, but makes it an extra 100 grams or 3.5 ounces. So mine cost £280 5 years ago, and now it is at £229.99. So it's actually come down in price. It's inner pitch first, so it pegs out well even without using the storm guidelines. As we can see, the canvas on the outer is taut, making it better in harsher conditions. This is compact in storage, but I use a dry bag to draw out the air for when packing it away. I separate the poles, pegs from the canvas, which I do the same with any tent. It just makes sense to put the poles down the inner frame of the rucksack and keep pegs in the side pockets when they are easily accessible when required. So the pegs are a DAC aluminium peg, which each peg weighs in at 10 grams. We have 10 pegs, so obviously 100 grams in total for pegs alone. Again, the newer version comes with all the pegs required, 14. The poles are a DAC NSL, which are designed for backpacking lightweight tents and comes as a singular skeleton hybrid pole. The inner is made of 20D polyester with a mesh upper, and the ground sheet is a 20D nylon. The fly is 20D ripstop nylon with a 3000mm hydrostatic head. The ground sheet is a 6000mm hydrostatic head as well. Now you can get a footprint if you are on wet ground, then to use a footprint, although in the summer probably get away without a footprint, making it about 200 grams lighter. If you do want the optional footprint, it is £30, and you can go to the Alpkit website for that. The tent is quite taut, the fly sheet, so even without the guidelines you do keep warm without having to have a full second skin. So the poles clip into these press fit connectors that once the fly is on can be tightened to strengthen the structure, and it has a bathtub design. And the pole system with press fit connectors, lightweight hubs and eco-friendly anodizing. As the walls are quite steep, it reduces the chance of pools of water collecting, so you can stand up to wet and windy conditions. As I mentioned before, mine's the hybrid design, and the newer version is the semi-geodesic design. So there you go, that is the tent put up. It didn't take too long, even with a bit of a demonstration. Let's take a look around the tent. So looking at the tent, as we can see at the front, it has got a decent vent here where you can tab it up. Good for if you those windy nights where you have to cook in your vestibule. I generally try not to cook in my vestibule, but sometimes windy nights and cold wet nights you have to, so it does give you a good ventilation at the front. Okay, now you can see, as I mentioned at the front, this hook system. So it comes with this hook system, and all you do is to connect the fly sheet to the pole system. Then you can see there's like a rail sort of thing there, and then all you do is connect that to there, and then you can tighten that up for windier nights. So as we walk around the tent, you can see that on this side there's 2 guideline points. So we're moving around the back of the tent, you can see the way it's shaped at the back. Now the newer tent, so where they finish here, the poles, the 2018 model go in a hoop and connect up to this, like the same as the front, up to these final points either side, making it stronger and that better geodesic design. As you can see across the back, we've got another guide point, and then on this side we've got exactly the same. We've got one of the guidelines there, and this guide point here. Now, as you might be able to see from here, doesn't look so tidy now. It's had a massive rip in it. As you might be able to see, that is one big rip. If you want to see how to repair a tent, I'll put a link up here, and we move around. So let's have a look at the front. So looking from the front, a Velcro point there, and there's a second one here. It's a YKK zip. Pull this back using a toggle, and we can see into our porch. So the vestibule area, I believe it's 45 centimeters long, so it's a reasonable size. Obviously not one really for sitting in, but you'll get your boots and your pack in there. So we've got two-way zip, so if you want to undo it, look all the way to the bottom, all the way round, and put it on the hoop. The entrance into there, let's look inside. So the inner tent is 215 long, I think it's 120 wide at the top end. It narrows out a little bit towards the bottom, I think it's 90 at the bottom. I've got an ear mat, I'll put it in and we'll see how big it is with the mat inside. So now I've put the sleeping mat in. It is a Trekology UL 80, ultralight 80. This mat is, I think it's about 55 wide, 193 or 195 long, and lifts up at 10 centimeters. I'd like to know more about that, then I'll leave the link to where I did a bit of a review on that as well. I would say you quite easily get 2 sleeping mats in here. Now inside we can see the tent. There is a pocket here, quite a large pocket on this side, the second pocket there, the opposite side, and then either side of the door there is another pocket here. Okay, at the top we've got a point for hanging a headlamp. Click a carabiner on there and then you can hook a lantern. And looking inside, as I mentioned before, the rear is mesh, and then going over the top is mesh as well. But I think that actually improves. I don't really get much condensation in this tent. I have been in this tent with 65-mile-an-hour winds in the middle of winter. Did a winter wild camp, which I'll also leave a link to here, so you can see how it got on in windy conditions. But yeah, as you can see, it is a reasonable sized tent inside. Okay guys, let's look at the negatives first. So my main negative is it is a inner tent pitch first, which obviously if you're in wet conditions means you need to get your tent up fast to get your fly sheets on, so you don't soak the inner tent. On top of that, I do think it's more of a one-person tent rather than a two-person tent. You can get 2 people in quite easily, but maybe because I'm a big guy, 6'3". Once I've got all my kit in as well, it does make it a bit compact. So my third negative is the actual ground sheet. It is a 6,000mm high from start to head. Obviously, to keep the lightweightness down, the material is a bit thinner. So let's talk about the pros. So first of all, the mesh paneling on the top, the front and the rear makes it a very ventilated tent. I don't find much condensation problems with this tent at all. So as you can see, it's quite compact, especially for wild camping. It's quite discreet, fairly low to the ground. Quite honest, I love it. Probably one of the best tents I've actually bought. Hopefully I'm going to get a few more years out of it. Now there are lighter tents out there, but for the size I can actually fit in, as I said, I'm 192 centimeters tall. I find it ideal. It is well worth to consider this as an ultralight backpacking tent, and for wild camping as well. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review. So until next time, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye, hikers.